on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Oh, man, we are into the month of March, Dylan. Our first case in New York State. I'm very excited this month.
I'm really happy to be in New York State. I know that it is going to have a treasure trove of stories, but I don't like March.
It's been in like a lion, so maybe it will go out like a lamb. We have had some serious windy weather here lately. The past few days, it's been kind of nuts.
You didn't even ask me why I don't like March.
Why do you not like March?
Because at the end of it's my birthday.
Oh, and you don't like that?
Well, no.
I asked you earlier if I could throw you a birthday party, and you told me absolutely not.
No.
Why?
Because I don't want to spend the money on it.
Well, it would be my treat.
Well, I know that.
Dylan, I realized I've been thinking a lot lately, like I'm having a bit of a midlife crisis or something. It's been like really hitting me lately that we're middle-aged. We went to a party last night, and the party was just like adults our age drinking and just eating the whole night. And that was the party.
Yeah.
Which I'm not complaining, because I like to drink and eat. That's great. But it's a far cry from what we were doing like 20 years ago.
Yeah, but it's still a good time. It's a safer time. But, you know, us middle-aged adults can eat and drink a lot. So, you know, an hour or two, it'd be lit. Right?
I don't know. I kept eating chicken salad. I could not stop eating the chicken salad. I had so much chicken salad last night, but I rationalized it that it was a good shot of protein, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And before I forget, I would like to thank today's sponsors, Leah and Anthony.
They are bringing you this excellent show today.
Thank you, Leah and Anthony, for sponsoring today's show.
Dylan, there's been a lot happening in the true crime world. Oh, Alec Murdaugh, guilty.
2 life sentences was his sentence, and to run consecutively, so he will die in prison, which is a good thing, because I think he most certainly killed his wife and son.
Yeah.
To take the heat off of the all the stealing from his law firm.
He's just a scam. He's a big old scam.
I guess this will be basically the last time we really talk about this. It moved quickly, I felt like, for such a high-profile case.
Surprised.
I think the area, the county, wanted to kind of purge Alec Murdaugh from their system. And Heather was reading some very interesting stories about his family.
Yeah, it's recently come out that his like great-great-granddad died under mysterious circumstances in 1940.
Hit by a train.
Hit by a train. By a damned old train.
And then it said something.
All the makings of a country song.
Something to the effect since then, because the train company that hit the great-grandpa, turned into a big conglomerate, CSAX. The law firm that he created went on to sue that train company many times, right?
They sued the train company directly after, I believe his name was Randolph, after he was killed, and got a big settlement from this train company. And then they have gone on to sue that train company like multiple times.
Like if they get a case where the train company could be held liable, they want to take it.
Yes.
And they want to sue that company.
And they've made a lot of money suing the same train company for, 80 years.
I want to say it put $19 million in fees in their coffers.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot.
It's a lot of bread, Dylan. Okay, we are going to discuss a serial killer. And this is a fella that I have always been a little bit fascinated by. He's a total fucking scumbag, Dylan, but you don't know a lot about him.
I do not know a lot about about him. And when you tell him, you can't say his name?
Sure. Well, yeah, it's in the title of the show
It's
today.
Joel Rifkin. And the only thing I really know about him is that one of Elaine's boyfriends on Seinfeld had that name, and she wanted him to change it because he had the same name as a serial killer.
Yes, there is a good Seinfeld episode out there, Dylan.
So I'm very excited to listen to this and learn about Mr. Rifkin.
You know, I first learned about Mr. Rifkin years ago, before my true crime interest was sparked. I was in a class at my college where we had to do presentations. It wasn't quite a speech class, but almost like a speech class. I didn't even know the title of it. It was like college success or something. They made everyone take this class, but it was a lot of speeches. And we had a professor. He was an oddball. He wanted us to cover serial killers.
Nice.
Everybody got assigned a serial killer. We didn't get to pick. He just randomly gave you a serial killer to cover. You had to do a little project. I got Joel Rifkin.
Really?
Yeah. So learning about Joel back then, I mean, this is a lot. So I've been excited for the opportunity to talk about him, because I think you're going to be like, wow, this guy's a monster.
So it could be said you're a Joel Rifkin expert because you did this class project.
I'm no expert, but I have known about the Rifkin for a long time. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Joel Rifkin was adopted in the winter of 1959, 3 weeks after he was born on January 20th. His biological parents were unwed college students. Ben and Jean Rifkin had wanted a child from early in their marriage, but it didn't seem like it would ever happen for them. Baby Joel was a blessing to the Rifkins, who were living in a small ranch home in New City, which is located in upstate New York. Ben was 40 and Jean was 37 when they were finally able to adopt this child, making them slightly older than most parents of a newborn.
Yeah, that's on the, it happened. I think it happens more often in our time because people do career first, get the house lined up and all that, and then maybe have kids a little later, especially when you have two professional people who live together and work together. But I would say back then it's probably quite atypical, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, Dylan. In 1962, Joel became a brother when the Rifkins adopted a daughter named Jan. The adoptions were never a secret. The Rifkins were always open with the children that they were adopted, but insisted they were special because they had been chosen and they were much wanted.
Oh, wow.
I think that's a nice thing to say.
Oh, I see what they're saying. At first I was like, wow, they think it's manifest destiny that they're born to be they're special, chosen by God to be adopted by these parents.
Well, maybe they felt that way.
Okay.
Maybe they felt manifest destiny, Dylan. Maybe they're Americans through and through. When Joel was 6, the family moved to East Meadow. Ben took a job as a structural engineer at Brookhaven National Laboratory in Stony Brook. Jean was a devoted stay-at-home mother. It wasn't until the kids were older and enrolled in elementary school that she took a part-time job as a recreational therapist. An avid gardener, Jean taught her young son about horticulture. Joel seemed to be very interested in the subject and spent hours working alongside his mother in the garden, tending to the flowers. Joel often took care of cutting the grass. Jean taught her son about foliage as they trimmed trees and hedges. Jean was also interested in photography, which she passed on to her son. She was also a crafter, and Joel enjoyed making crafts with his mom, working with driftwood, and he later took up screen printing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's like they seem like they have a good relationship, this mother and son, and she's able to pass on a lot of her hobbies to her son, which is cool.
Yeah, it is. And I think gardening and flowers and stuff like that, it's very interesting and relaxing. And I think it's a great hobby to have.
Yeah. And I think most kids enjoy digging in the dirt.
Well, that's a good thing about it. It's not
know?
too hard to get the kids to come help you, like you
Yeah.
said, dig in the dirt.
Kids like to dig, and you get dirty, and you find little night crawlers, little worms and bugs. It's kind of cool. Ben and Jean were also big proponents of education and paid special attention to overseeing their children's learning. Ben was elected to the East Meadows School Board when Joel was in the 5th grade. He was eventually appointed as vice president of the school board. Ben was also on the public library board, and landed Joel a job in the library after school where he could arrange and sort books.
Well, that's a great little job for a young person.
Yeah, I think that would be a pretty awesome job, especially if you were an avid reader.
Man, it almost seems like it's hard to get a job at the damn library.
It seems like it's not the easiest job to land.
Well, I think it is a pretty decent job, and I don't think people leave it that often. And you might be able to go volunteer or something like that, but it almost seems like an insulated club that is.
Well, you
actually
have to
works.
have typically advanced degrees to be a librarian. You have to have like a master's of library science. So I think there's a lot of education that goes into being a librarian.
Oh my God, I did not know there was such a thing.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, yeah, to be like a head librarian, typically you have to have like a master's degree.
Now, is that going to be heavy in knowledge of literature and things like that, you think?
I'm assuming so, Dylan.
Okay.
No, you have to be able to do algebra.
Ah, damn it.
Yeah.
I would never make it.
They want you to be able to weld some gates.
Oh my God, they would laugh me out of there, my little high school dropout. They'd be like, oh.
You might be able to work there as like a library assistant or something.
I thought you was going to say the maintenance guy.
I actually have quite a few friends that work in libraries. And not all of them are, have master's degrees and whatnot. I mean, I have some friends that one of my friends kind of does like he oversees like adult education. So organizes a lot of the events at the library, like computer classes or guest speakers, kind of the adult programming.
Yeah, back in the day, and of course we'll move on, but back in the day, the library was a very important component of a community. A lot of different stuff happened there. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I have another friend who often shares with me some funny stories about the comings and goings on at the library.
Well, it was a way for people to access different types of media for free, basically, and the internet early on.
And people come in there and ask all kinds of questions. Yeah.
They probably come in there and look porn up on the library computer.
I think that's happened maybe before. Yeah.
Yeah.
My friends told me some strange stories. Moving along. So although Joel was considered bright, his IQ was around 128. He performed poorly in school. As a young student, he struggled with reading. Years later, Joel would be diagnosed with dyslexia. But at the time, they really didn't know what this condition was or how to help him.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when they're not aware of certain conditions, they'll just kind of write a kid off as a problem child, or they just don't want to follow direction, or it's like it's something wrong with the kid. You know what I mean?
Well, now they have, a lot of special education programs and assistance that can really focus on helping a child, and they have techniques for teaching and making the material more digestible to children who do have learning disabilities or cognitive issues. But back then it was like, if you didn't fit into this, this mold of what this is a student is supposed to be, and you can't get this curriculum, then yeah, you were just kind of left outside in the dark, like, sorry, can't help you.
So if you weren't going to be a good little citizen worker and be, completely programmed properly, something's wrong with you.
Well, Jean spent hours tutoring her son in the evenings, like hours. So Joel would spend all day in school and then come home and sit with his mom at the kitchen table going over reading and writing assignments and doing math problems, which is no fun for a kid. You've spent 8 hours in a classroom. The last thing you do when you come home is want to spend 3 or 4 hours being tutored by your parents.
Now, I already see something that makes me want to comment about his relationship with his mother, because it seems like a good, caring relationship. It's minus the abuse and the terrible things that sometimes you have in the home and in the family history of people like this. So I find that interesting.
By all accounts, Joel had an amazing home life. Very supportive parents, loving, middle class. I mean, he didn't go without. There was no abuse.
Because that takes some care and dedication to put that much effort into making sure he gets his extra tutelage because of, having issues in school. Well, that's not easy.
Now, not only did Joel struggle with these academics, but he also had a tough time making friends, Dylan. Joel did not seem to fit in with the other children. In elementary school, the kids were particularly cruel, Dylan. They called him Turtle because he walked with a slow gait and he had bad posture.
Okay.
By high school, Joel was labeled a loser by the other kids because not only did they find him weird, but he had terrible grades.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I'm wired. I've never picked on anyone. As a matter of fact, I've actually stood up for people in the past. Who
Yeah, I've
couldn't
only really
defend-
become a bully as an adult.
Heather is a professional troll, and if you need her services, please hit us up at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
I've only become a troll within the past few years.
We'll
just
talk about
saying.
it some other time, but you're a cruel troll. You're a very good one, and we'll give some examples later on.
Well, it really shuts people up. Now, he wore nerdy, like wired rim glasses. His pants always seemed a little bit too short, showing these bright white socks. And we know kids, they're going to, anything they can like call you out on and bully you, I mean, it doesn't matter, they're going to do it. So even if everyone else is wearing white socks, they're going to call Joel out for wearing these bright white socks with short pants.
Well, what it is almost like a pack mentality. They join in on it because they don't want to be the victim. And they know if they show, any weirdness or whatever's considered not normal, they may be next. And I've just never understood day after day, especially picking on someone and just being mean to them. I just don't get it.
Joel was rejected by the girls. He usually ate lunch alone. Popular kids would play catch with him, like shoving. They would grab him by the arms and sort of toss him back and forth and throw him into lockers.
That's physical assault.
Yeah. Joel was described as on the bottom of the social ladder. And despite the bullying and Joel's obvious anger, he would be shaking with rage when this was happening. He never stood up for himself or lashed out until one time. During his junior year, Joel witnessed another kind of nerdy kid getting bullied. He jumped in the middle of the fight, swinging, and his strength surprised even the toughest jocks who were participating
Oh my God.
in this assault.
He's got quiet strength.
Joel yanked the boys apart. Later, the boys would both say that the look in Joel's eyes was frightening.
Well, that's because you kept on and you done pushed this a kid, young man, to the breaking point.
He joined the cross-country team as a freshman. Though he was an average runner on the team, the others called him Lardass. I mean, just anything to be cruel.
He can't win. It's like he keeps trying to do these things, and I'm going to guess his main goal is to fit in.
Yes.
Get a group of at least somebody, maybe his teammates, someone who will just accept him.
They hid his running gear. They would tuck notes in his lockers. And these were, of course, like forged notes that were from girls who allegedly wanted to date him.
And so he would have a brief glimmer of happiness and hope, and then it would be
He would be shot down.
rug pulled out from under him in front of everybody.
They attacked him with eggs as he left his library job. In the school locker room after practice, the jokes tormented him. They would hide his towel, steal his clothes. They would hold his head underwater in the showers.
This is like it's like these are movie bullies.
I know, I was going to say, these are like movie bullies from like the 1980s.
Yeah, what are you going to dunk my head in the toilet? Give me a swirly?
You're going to make me so mad, I'm going to turn into a werewolf.
Like putting someone's head in the fucking toilet. That's insane to me. You know what I mean? And even if they can't do anything about it right then, that's a good way to end up on somebody's list.
Exactly. He caught a ride to a training camp. This was a like track cross-country kind of training camp with some other students from Long Island. The kid who gave him a ride ended up abandoning him. And this camp was like 3 hours away. But this kid left him, and then no one else, none of his other teammates would give Joel a ride home.
They're on the same team.
He had to call Ben to make the 3-hour drive to come pick him up. I mean, kids are fucking monsters, Dylan. They really are.
How about, look, dude, we're wearing the same shirt.
Yeah.
We go to practice together.
And for no reason. I mean, there was really not a reason to not like him.
So here you have this young man, freshman. He can't win. It's like he can't win no matter what. Every time he tries to do something to change his circumstance or better it, people just pile on more. And that's just a terrible way to have to live.
Joel tried to please his tormentors, often inviting them over when his parents were away. If they showed up, the kids would have run of the house and be exceptionally mean to Joel, and he would just lap it up. He was happy to have attention from these guys, even if they were being cruel, trashing his house, eating all the food, like tearing shit up. He was just happy to have them there.
That's very sad.
It is. By senior year, he quit the track team after earning a varsity letter. He joined the AV crew, yearbook staff, and photography club. Joel didn't fit in with these kids either. At one point, they stole his camera. Joel eventually got a new one.
Wait a second. You're telling me Joel didn't fit in with the AV kids?
No.
Where this is a group
The
of
audio-visual kids didn't even accept him.
This is a group of Island of Misfit Toys kids that everybody else picks on, and Joel was their prey as well.
Oh, yeah.
He can't win.
Right. I mean, they stole his camera. He eventually got a new one. The only place he found reprieve was in the school newspaper office. He worked as a photographer, and it gave him a place to hang out between classes and hide from these bullies. He had one, and I use air quotes, friend, who would catch rides with Joel when he finally got his driver's license. His parents bought him a Toyota, and he would catch rides with Joel. They would sometimes go to the record store after school and hang out in Joel's room listening to music. And Joel really liked rock music. He was really into the Eagles and Led Zeppelin. So they would just kind of chill and listen to music. Aside from the bullying and academic problems, Joel had a normal home life. As I mentioned before, the Rifkins were middle class. They often took family vacations to the mountains or the beach. Joel loved going on fishing trips with his dad. Joel and Jan fought like normal siblings. A lot of it had to do with a bathroom they shared on the second floor of their parents' home.
And that is going to... Heather used to fight me and her daughter when we shared a bathroom. That can be a contentious issue.
I like having my own bathroom space.
I like having my own bathroom.
Right? It's nice. No one's touching my stuff, using my shit.
Spitting in your sink and not washing it out.
Oh, I can't stand that.
Oh my gosh, you'll fight somebody over that shit.
It's gross. Like, don't do that to my sink. The Rifkins were Jewish, but they didn't attend synagogue. Unlike a lot of kids in their neighborhood, they didn't attend temple or have a bar mitzvah. Ben was described as a great role model for Joel. He was a valued member of the community, and in the 1970s, he was seen as quite progressive. Joel's dad joined a men's group who met every week to discuss ways they could improve their relationships with women and how they could understand women's changing roles in society.
Yeah, I want to go to one of those men's group where they support each other and they tell each other where it's okay to be affectionate amongst men amongst each other, and we'll be like out in the woods with a campfire and we'll let out our primal howl and shit like that.
Okay.
Oh, has anybody got a group like that? Hit me up at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
Ben advocated for students' rights and encouraged young people to take an interest in political activism. The school superintendent described Ben as being, quote, ahead of his time, often reminding administrators and educators that students were humans who deserved to be treated with dignity. Yet his parents were also pushy when it came to academics and wanting their son to succeed. Joel lacked confidence. He didn't want to pursue anything. It's like he retreated into himself. He internalized the bullying, yet something was brewing under the surface. By the time he was 18, Joel, who had never really shown much interest in girls, or at least never discussed any interest with anyone, began frequenting sex workers.
Well, I mean, he just kind of just figured out every time he does try to get in with a new group or something, it's just another group of new bullies that end up turning on him. So I don't blame him for not trusting anyone.
A lot of people say, though, even when they tried to kind of be nice to him, there was just something about Joel that was very irritating.
And I think we've all known someone like that. And I've even seen people that you're like, look, you're getting bullied because you're kind of a dick. You know what I mean? They're not always just a sweet, innocent. It still doesn't mean people should do this to them on a daily basis, but you kind of understand how they're rubbing people wrong, Joel
applied to State University at Brockport, but seemed to fail. He would take classes, but didn't have a major or any kind of direction. After 2 years, he dropped out. He enrolled in community college, sometimes quitting mid-semester. After 2 years, he had only earned about 12 credits and had no degree in sight.
Damn, Joel's doing worse than me in community college. I had 1 semester, but I earned all 4 credits. But, oh shit, I lost my train of thought. Continue, Heather.
It was during his first round of college that he got a girlfriend. She described Joel as always depressed, not interested in academics, and that she slowly watched his decline as far as hygiene. He neglected himself, and that she kind of watched this happen over a period of time.
So it just got worse and worse.
Yes.
Okay.
He worked various jobs, never earning more than minimum wage. One job was at a record store, and it seemed like a good fit because Joel was really into music, but he didn't work well with others. He was sloppy and slow with work. Joel had trouble making deposits. He couldn't do basic math and came into work with a dirty appearance. He would show up and have dirt under his nails, and his clothing would be covered in oil and other stains, as if he had been helping his mom in the garden or he'd been working on a vehicle all day and then would just come to work dressed in these dirty clothes, smelling, just being dirty.
Now, here's the issue we have at the mill. Right quick, I'll say. Everyone's left there smelling bad. If you've had a bad night, you got into some nasty stuff. But if you show up and I can already smell you, now we got an issue. Because you ain't washed your ass.
That happens,
And we're supposed to stay together for 12 hours?
That happens sometimes, Dylan.
My little brain kicked out what I was thinking a minute ago. It's almost like he's sleepwalking through life. He has no passion for any of these things. I'm going to guess that maybe he's just doing what his parents tell him he should do with the college, the community college. But his heart's not in it, and you can tell. And he sounds depressed as well.
Absolutely. He made 2 attempts to live on his own, but always ended up back at his parents' house. Joel drifted in and out of jobs, never quite finding one where he succeeded. Joel dreamed of being a writer. He spent hours reading and writing. Jean knew of her son's aspirations, but she kind of worried about them as well. He would take his camera to the beach and to museums. He experimented a lot with photography into adulthood. But in 1986, things fell apart when Ben became ill. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He endured pain and suffering, trying to remain cheerful, but in February of 1987, Ben wrote a letter to his family and then took a fatal number of medications.
Wow.
28-year-old Joel delivered the eulogy at his father's funeral. Joel said, quote, "He did not give me life, but he gave me love."
Well, that's a pretty good quote.
It is a good quote. Ben's death pushed Joel deeper into darkness and depression. Joel had spent nights cruising Hempstead and Lower Manhattan for sex workers, but he was choosy and he would take his time sort of seeking out the right one. Joel met a waitress who was the mother of 2 children at a pizzeria in Queens. The pair quickly fell into conversation, bonding over their mutual interest in writing. They often spoke over the phone about a screenplay she was writing. Joel shared his works with her, and for the first time he felt validated. Her name was Catherine Kelty, and she told him he was a talented writer and that he should pursue his passion. And this was kind of the first time outside of his family that Joel is getting positive feedback from someone.
And she probably didn't even realize how much this might mean to him to actually, have someone say, "Hey, good job. You're good at this."
In the summer of 1987, she had rented an apartment in Manhattan, inviting Joel to move in as a roommate. She wanted him to pay half the rent, chip in with the housework, and edit her screenplay. Jean had reservations about the move. She was lonely, having just lost her husband, and she also had only met Catherine Kelty one time, and Jean didn't like her.
So her first impression is, I don't care for this person.
Yeah. Now, for a time, the partnership worked out. Though Joel was disappointed, it never was more than platonic. They went to bars, they went to nightclubs together. He didn't drink or take drugs that were being offered. He was a fairly responsible young man when it came to partying. wasn't doing any of that stuff. But he was enamored with Catherine Kelty and often watched her dancing from the shadows of the nightclub.
That's not weird at all.
No. He never worked on her screenplay, though. She became frustrated, and the pair argued. Joel took a job with a courier company, and Kelty knew he'd never have time to edit her writing because he had been unemployed for some weeks and had not touched her screenplay. So if he's working full-time, this means he's less likely to read her screenplay and help her with it.
Well, it seems like he could have got something done. So if he has more responsibility in life now, a job or whatever, she doesn't feel very good about him accomplishing anything as far as helping her.
They had a heated argument in which she pulled a knife on Joel and forced him to leave the apartment. Kelty, who then was earning her living as a sex worker, stated she was never Joel's girlfriend. She would later tell the police she was retired and she had AIDS.
Oh.
Though Kelty claimed that she and Joel had never had sex, she said he was obsessed with her, and she considered herself lucky to be alive. The end of their relationship left Joel feeling quite bitter. He dreamed of their lives together as famous writers, and now he was forced to move back into his mother's house.
Well, Joel, you're not putting in the work, bud.
At home, Jean was deeply depressed. She stopped socializing, she didn't enjoy her hobbies, and she didn't even take time to dye her hair anymore.
If you stop dyeing your hair like next week or tomorrow, I would be very worried.
You would?
Yeah, I'd be like, who are you? I don't even know you.
Okay.
You dye? Yeah. Well, it's just...
Note to self.
Well, don't do it. You're going to scare me. I'll be like, who is this?
It was around this time that Jean tried to get back into gardening with the help of her son. Then he decided he wanted to start a landscaping business. Jean helped him purchase a van, and he applied to an agricultural program in Farmingdale. Jean was pleased. Her son finally had a clear vision for the future. I mean, this is what she and Ben had been trying, to get Joel there for years.
Yeah. And
To a place where he's happy and can earn a living and take care of himself.
so now he's 30 plus, right?
No, he's still in his 20s.
Still in his late 20s.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's finally found some direction. His he seems passionate about it. It sounds like, and I'd say this makes his mom feel good.
Now, had Joel become a landscaper and settled into normal life, things would have been very different. But that's not quite what happens, Dylan. On August 22nd, 1987, Rifkin was arrested by Hampstead Village Police for soliciting a prostitute. He had offered her $20 for oral sex, and it was an undercover cop. So he gets arrested, and he posts the $75 bail for himself.
That's got to be embarrassing when you get arrested for soliciting, because it's just, I don't know, I guess it's still looked down upon to be taking part in that type of legal sex work, right?
Yeah. He skipped the hearing and later paid a $250 fine. Rifkin didn't tell anyone about the arrest, and he especially did not want his mother to know what had happened. He enrolled a few weeks later into an agricultural program. After the first year, Joel applied for an internship at the Planting Fields Arboretum. He wrote an essay and underwent a pretty intense interview process. And he actually ended up being one of the few selected for this position. And it was a pretty prestigious position.
So once again, proving that he has some talent with writing, right?
Yeah. Now, he didn't connect with his coworkers, shockingly. His design ideas were kind of off the wall, too. And folks at the Arboretum were like, what is he doing? Like, he just had some really strange ideas that they didn't quite work.
Let's tie some of them tulips up to that ceiling fan.
Yeah, he would want to plant flowers like under pine trees and just odd. It was just odd.
I'm no horticulturalist.
You're a whore. What?
But I don't think that would work. I think the acidity
Well, it was just
of the pine needles.
strange. And
Yeah.
they would be like, why would you plant flowers under these trees?
It's not getting any
They're-
sun.
Yeah, like just odd. By spring of 1989, nearing the end of the program, Joel's grades suddenly plummeted and he dropped out of school. It's almost like he's afraid of being successful.
Yeah, and he's certainly not afraid to just be like, I'm over this, and walk away and not worry about the time and effort he's invested without much of a payout. So, again, I think that points to the fact that maybe his heart's not he's not very passionate about some of these things.
Well, by the end, or by this time, the internship had ended. So it almost seemed like he was really into it when he was getting to do the work. But when he had to go back to school and finish the program, that's when he dropped out.
Do you think all internships should be paid to some degree?
Yeah, I think so.
No, I get that, companies are like, oh, you're getting real world experience, but they're getting free labor from this person. And
I think there should, at minimum, be some sort of stipend.
Well, I think it should at least be whatever the minimum wage is.
You're right, Dylan. Now, taking on the task of running his own landscaping business was unsuccessful. He landed a decent gig working for a large estate. It was actually the widow of a former CIA director that owned the sprawling estate. But Joel refused to work every day and eventually just stopped showing up.
I don't know why you expect me to come out here every day, even though you're paying me, and to cut the grass.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an estate where there was a lot of landscaping to be done, a lot of consistent work, and he was being paid, I think, about $10 an hour, which by 1980 standards was definitely more than minimum wage.
Well, yeah, it's the kind of job, the grounds you would like to get, even if you just had that one estate and just a couple other small jobs, you could probably get by on that. There's always something need to be done.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would get word of mouth and other recommendations for maybe, other wealthy folks. I mean, it could be a lucrative gig, but he just was like, I don't want to show up. Don't want to do it. This guy, he lacks motivation, Dylan.
He lacks a lot of motivation. I'm not sure what's going on with him.
Joel got into several car accidents. He never paid for parking tickets or any of these traffic accidents and eventually lost his license. He seldom showered by now. He's just stanking like a mofo. And, if he's out doing landscape work, you probably want to shower up.
Yeah.
Got that chicken noodle soup armpits, bro.
Nah, man. What? When Joel comes into the room.
Smell like an onion.
Because you can taste him.
After the arrest in Hampstead, Joel stopped searching for sex workers on Long Island. Instead, he made the trip into Manhattan, mostly to the Lower East Side, where he felt like there was less, cops around. He would be less likely to bump into someone that he knew. If he was arrested, word wouldn't get back to his mom.
Right. So kind of
it's more discreet.
He feels way more comfortable. It's just more of probably a bit of what's the right word? Sketchy neighborhood, right? There's not a whole lot of police activity and things like, well, no, I guess there would be. I don't know.
Yeah, but probably not like you would get out on Long Island.
Well, no, if you have...
in a city like New York.
Yeah.
And this is in the 80s. There's a lot of crime afoot. So prostitution and sex work is, I would say, probably not a top priority.
No, the violent crime ran rampant during that time.
Joel had also taken an interest in the criminal trial of accused serial killer Arthur Shawcross. And if you remember, Dylan, we covered Shawcross. It's probably been 2 years ago.
I remember everything about it. There's no way that I don't remember us doing that.
Rifkin kept a scrapbook, carefully clipping out news articles about the serial killer who had murdered 11 sex workers. Joel read a book about the unsolved Green River Killer murders, who, if you recall, Gary Ridgway, he killed about 49 sex workers in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, yeah.
He had a huge body count.
I did not realize the Green River Killer's body count was that high.
Yeah.
That's only going to be beat by people like maybe Sam Little.
Yeah.
If that's to be true that he's up around 100. But it's like he's pulling inspiration from these different killers. That's kind of weird.
It is very strange. The intense loneliness of Joel's childhood and early adulthood led him to have these extreme fantasies about raping and strangling women to death. He also had sexual desires to stab women. Joel would later say every minute he was not with prostitutes, he daydreamed about killing them. Violence and rage filled his mind, and he was a ticking time bomb ready to lash out. His terrible fantasies were not going away, and if anything, they were just getting worse. He had created a plan. The next time his mother was out of town, he was going to procure a sex worker.
Now, when you're having these fantasies and intense fantasies, I've never I've daydreamed a little here and there, but I've never had anything like this. Have you ever had like truly fantasized about something, even something positive, to accomplish it or something, to where it just kind of consumes you?
No, probably not.
Me neither. That sounds like a lot of work, but it's very dangerous when you kind of live in this delusional fantasy world of your own. And like they say, is fantasies are best left in Fantasyland.
Is that what they say?
That's what I said.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, even if it's something that's like your kink and sex or something, sometimes when you try this thing that you've dreamed about and thought it'd be so cool, it doesn't work out like that at all.
Oh, are you speaking from experience?
No,
Do you
come
want to
on.
share with us?
I don't. I would tell it if there was that story, but there is not. But no, I mean, it can kind of even destroy the fantasy.
Was there a
thing.
clown involved?
Clown, construction tape, and cones.
A rubber chicken?
Of course.
Honk honk. I knew it. Freak.
Well,
The first two women to die by Joel Rifkin's hands were never found. Joel would later tell police he strangled, then dismembered their bodies because it was easier to transport them that way. He committed his first murder in 1989. On March 5th of 1989, two golfers at the Hopewell Valley Golf Club found a severed female head near a stream on the 7th fairway. A few days later, it was reported the head tested positive for AIDS.
oh my gosh. So, right quick, he went first kill. He goes straight to dismemberment.
Yes.
I'm going to assume he planned it all the way through that, thought about it. This will be the easiest way to move the body around. And he just went hard in the paint.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's not even fumbling around with
No,
it.
it's a lot. And we've said it before. It's almost like next level. It's one thing when you murder someone, but when you take it a step further and you're dismembering that person, that's like a whole nother level of depraved. And to just jump right in there with it, yeah. Joel's a fucked up person.
You know, I'm almost ashamed as a true crime podcaster to not know more about Joel Rifkin, but I am glad to be here with Mount Murder Studio.
All right. Well, the head has tested positive for AIDS, right? So we've just got a head. A pair of legs were found in a stream about 80 miles away in Jefferson Township in the spring of 1989. So it's been, a while later, a couple weeks or a few months. Though testing, through testing, it was determined the legs and head belonged to the same victim. In 2013, the remains were finally identified as belonging to Heidi Block, a sex worker. Little is known about Heidi's death except what information Joel had offered up.
Yeah, and who knows what of that's true, right? I mean, it's his version.
Yeah. While his mother was out of town, Joel and Black returned to his childhood home where they stayed the night. But Joel soon took out his rage on this woman, bashing her head in with a howitzer artillery shell, which his parents kept as a souvenir. Joel only stopped beating her when he grew tired, but she wasn't dead yet. When Joel tried to move her, she bit him on the finger. He then strangled her to death. He recounted this on Rifkin on Rifkin.
That has got to be maybe outside of war, that has got to be the first time that a howitzer shell was used as a blunt instrument, blunt force trauma weapon.
Heidi, who used about 15 different aliases, was also known as Susan Spencer. She had several Social Security cards. The 25-year-old had been living in New York City, Brooklyn specifically, dabbling in sex work. Her aunt filed a missing persons report in 2001. Joel said Susie, because that was the name she had given him at the time, was a drug addict who asked him to stop off at several places so she could find drugs before they returned to his mother's house. After the murder, Joel placed her in a trash bag, then went about cleaning the living room of blood. He then rested for several hours. After a nap, Joel took Susie's body to the basement where he claims he dismembered her and used pliers to remove the teeth. He also cut off the tips of her fingers so she would be harder to identify. He shoved Susie's head into an empty paint can, then put her body parts in various trash bags, which he loaded into his mother's car. He drove to New Jersey, where he dumped the legs and head. Then he drove on to Manhattan, where he tossed the other body parts in the East River.
So, okay, for one thing, I'm just trying to imagine how a human head fits in a paint can, but I think your little head might. Mine would not. You need a 5-gallon bucket of paint for this head.
Okay. You're silly. Can I continue?
Yes. I'm sorry, baby.
Or do you want to talk about your big head some more? I think they've heard enough about your head over the years. Joel's second victim was Julie Blackbird. She was killed in 1990. Her remains have never been found. Julie had grown up in Texas but moved to New York City in search of career opportunities. After picking up Julie, Joel thought she looked like Madonna. That was the one thing he kind of could remember about her. He brought her back to his mother's home. After the pair spent the night together, once again, they're at Jean's house. His mom's out of town. Joel beat her with a table leg and then strangled her to death. Joel said he considered having sex with her dead body as Ted Bundy had done, but found it too repulsive. I mean, come on, Dylan, a guy's got to have standards, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will kill, I will attack and violently kill, dismember, but necrophilia, nah, that's a step too far for me.
That's where he draws the line.
Yes, he's got to have some morals, like you said.
He told investigators he dismembered Julie's body, put it into various buckets filled with concrete, and dropped the buckets into the East River and Brooklyn Canal. As I mentioned, her body has never been recovered. Julie's personal diary would later be found among Joel's belongings. He kept many trophies from his victims. And we'll talk more about those trophies as time marches on, Dylan. Rifkin's fascination with sex workers began at an early age. In 1972, he watched the Alfred Hitchcock movie Frenzy and got the idea to strangle sex workers. By the time he was legally an adult, Joel could cruise around seeking out sex from working women. He was indulging himself with prostitutes so often, he sometimes missed class and work. Joel, who never earned more than minimum wage, spent most of his money on sex.
Well, I was about to say, how's he funding this?
He even got into debt paying sex workers. On more than one occasion, Joel was robbed by these women, and sometimes even their pimps would show up. They would beat him up and rob him.
So, well, I guess they probably were not at all intimidated by Mr. Rifkin.
Oh, he's kind of wormy.
But little do they know, he's a monster.
Yeah. That's probably another reason why women didn't feel uncomfortable going with him, because he's kind of a wormy, unassuming, just a weird little dude.
Yeah, it's I hate to say it. I mean, I looked at the pictures there a minute ago. I see where they got the turtle thing from. He kind of has that long, kind of turtly face, kind of a Mitch McConnell face in a way. But what's funny is that Joel is a monster towards people he knows he can either catch by surprise or that he's stronger than them.
Yes.
Otherwise, he seems to be cowardly.
Yeah. Barbara Jacobs was a 30-year-old woman who had worked as a prostitute to support her drug addiction. She had multiple arrests for both drugs, solicitation, and car theft. On the evening of July 13th, 1991, Joel picked up Barbara and they went to his home. After having sex, Barbara fell asleep. So Joel used the same table leg he had killed Julie Blackbird with to bludgeon Barbara Jacobs. Afterwards, he strangled her with his bare hands until she was dead. Now, he says he didn't relish the dismemberment, so he needed another way to get rid of this woman. Like, the dismemberment's just not for him.
Well, it sounds like he needs to, he's afraid, because strangling's not easy. True crime fans know that. It's very tough, very physical. You have to be rather strong usually. So he's going to bash them in the head to kind of incapacitate them and then strangle them. I think that's a very kind of an odd technique he came up with. So it seems like he's afraid of not being strong enough to just outright, attack them and hold them down, strangle them.
He wrapped her in plastic, then stowed her in a cardboard box. He dumped the box into the back of his pickup truck. He loaded the box. I'm skipping ahead. He loaded the box into the back of his pickup truck, then dumped her in the Hudson River. However, unlike the other two women, Barbara's remains were found almost immediately. Firefighters who were on a training exercise happened to be in an area near a cement plant when they discovered her body in this box. So it just is sort of dumb luck there nearby doing a training exercise.
So it's somewhere normally people wouldn't be.
Probably. Now, initially, her cause of death was listed as a drug overdose, though she was considered a Jane Doe. They probably just didn't want they didn't want the trouble of having to figure it out.
Well, for one, I was like, how in the hell did she overdose and put herself in a box? But I guess you could consider that she was with someone, she accidentally overdosed, and that they did this, were scared, and got rid of her body.
Jacobs was buried in a Potter's Field cemetery as a Jane Doe. 22-year-old Mary Ellen DeLuca was also working as a prostitute to feed her drug habit. The pretty brunette had grown up on Long Island, surrounded by a loving family and a lot of friends. It was on September 1st of 1991 that she had actually been out with a group of friends, like hanging out, having a good time. But she told her friends that she had to, cut the evening short because she needed to get a fix. She was a crack user and willingly got into Joel's truck. Now, instead of going straight to Joel's home, DeLuca asked him to drive her around New York City so she could score some crack. Now, by the time the sun was coming up, the pair made their way to a cheap motel. Joel was growing impatient because he had already spent around $150 buying her drugs.
Oh.
DeLuca was demanding more drugs, and she told Joel she would not have sex with him until she was high.
No, hold on a second. We've been getting crack all night. And I know that she's not holding on to it because that's just not the way that works. So you've been getting high, and now we're already $150 into you. That's where Joel messed up. You got to have the sex first, then go get the drugs.
Is that what happened? That's okay.
That's the best way to guarantee you get the sex.
Is that your advice?
Yeah. I think it's sound advice.
Okay. Well, according to Joel, DeLuca eventually agreed to have sex, though she rushed him along and complained the whole time. Due to the complaining, Joel grew angry and asked the woman if she wanted to die. She said yes. And Joel began strangling Mary.
Wow.
She did nothing to fight back and instead seemed to accept her fate. He later said this was a weird murder because she acted like he was doing her a favor.
That's very sad. She was in a very dark place in her life.
Yes.
Didn't even care if this guy's going to kill her. She's that down on her luck and just having a horrible life.
It's very sad. So this was an unusual murder for Joel. I mean, not only because his victim was compliant, which, it's just so odd and it's super sad. But this was in a motel.
Okay.
And he had not committed murder in a motel like this before, right? He usually has the comfort of his mother's house.
Yeah.
Right? The security of mommy's house.
How disgusting is that? You're just killing people left and right when she goes out of town. And no, he has control of the environment. He's comfortable. He has
it's
time.
Like Dahmer in his grandma's basement.
Yeah, he has time to, take care of things. And
he's kind of gotten into a rhythm.
So it seems like he wasn't exactly ready to kill her. It just kind of happened. And even though we know he's willing to kill. And now he has to deal with it in more of a public setting.
Right. And so the problem was how to remove Mary's body from this motel. So again, he borrows an idea from the Frenzy movie and gets a steamer trunk. He shoved the naked woman's body inside. She's only wearing a bra. She's naked otherwise. There was nothing in the trunk to identify her. So Joel drives his body to Cornwall, which is in Orange County, dumping the trunk at a rest stop. This is so odd. It took over a month for the body to be found on October 1st.
So the steamer truck's just sitting there in the parking lot.
Sitting just off from the
on
parking
the edge
lot.
of the parking lot.
At a rest stop, and nobody bothers to check this trunk. It's very strange to me, right?
Until some nerds like us come by and say, "Ooh, that's a cool old steamer trunk. I wonder what's in it."
Yeah, I mean, people aren't smelling this trunk.
Well, it might be a grody truck stop.
The body was so badly decomposed, the coroner couldn't determine a cause of death. Mary was also buried as a Jane Doe. It wasn't until June of 1993 that she was finally identified. Joel continued picking up sex workers between the murders, and he had cooling off periods. Though he murdered certain workers, others he paid and had a regular sexual encounter with. So he's not killing every woman he's paying.
Right. And if, let's say, for instance, a cop came by and asked questions, one of his regulars would say, "Oh, well, it can't be that guy. He's kind of not very threatening, and he's never done anything to me."
Well, that's the thing, is that he does have kind of regular women that he sees. They have normal encounters. He pays them. He will later say he considers some of these women his friends. So it's just very odd, I guess, how he picks and chooses like who he's gonna kill.
Well, I'm going to assume these are the ones that were safe, if you will. He really liked them, or maybe was really physically attracted to them, or they didn't do anything to cross him.
A few weeks after murdering Mary Ellen DeLuca, Joel was cruising for sex on September 23rd. He encountered 31-year-old Yoon Lee, a Korean woman whom Joel had paid for sex on previous occasions. Joel had already picked up a sex worker earlier that evening. So when it came time to have sex with Yoon Lee, Joel was unable to perform. For whatever reason, whether it was like his own insecurity, Dylan, or it was desire that overtook him, Joel began strangling Lee. Before she died, she managed to tell him, "You're making a big mistake." Lee was the first victim that Joel had known previously, and he would later say he did feel remorse for the murder because she was one of those women that he had known her and he liked her. He kind of considered her to be a bit of a friend. Like DeLuca, Joel purchased a steamer trunk to dispose of Lee's body. He dumped the trunk in the East River, but it was found pretty quickly after. Lee was identified by her ex-husband. Joel Rifkin believed his birth mother was a prostitute. It was later theorized that Rifkin killed prostitutes because he believed his mother was a sex worker. When interviewed, he said, quote, "I killed prostitutes because they had no one. They had no lasting relationship, no family who cared. No one would ever come looking for them."
Well, and I was going to say, who else do you get strangers to just get in your damn car and go with you willingly? I mean, unfortunately, you're going to pray. That's why, I mean, my God, how many... If you took away all the people who killed prostitutes over the years, there'd be a lot more prostitutes.
But that's not true. I mean, it's not always true. Joel chose to prey on these women because he felt they were societal throwaways, but many of these women had families, and they had friends who cared.
That's come up in our cases more than once. You'll have, even if they're in the midst of a drug usage, a lot of times these people will check in with family, go holidays, maybe check in on their kids, and they're still people. You know, they're not less than human or anything like that just because they're prostituting or have a drug habit. And a lot of times these people would at least once a month or something, contact family, let them know they're still kicking.
I mean, so many of these women who became Joel's victims had families who cared, and they had friends who were looking for them. I mean, just to have that idea, oh, well, they're just throwaways, just lets me know what an asshole this guy is.
Well, he's dehumanizing them in his mind, and it makes it more acceptable what he does to them.
And we know, Dylan, we've discussed it many times before. Destitute women are often easy targets because they do lead transient lifestyles and they sometimes can be drug addicts. And again, they might not have close relationships with families. Like, for example, the Heidi Block. Her family didn't report her missing until 2001.
Wow.
So some years, went by that they didn't speak to her. But these other women had families, they had kids.
But I mean, he's not completely wrong because of the lifestyle that they lived, them being transient and maybe taking off sometimes for, weeks or whatever at a time. It's going to delay them being reported missing. And sometimes I'm sure he was right that they didn't have any family.
It was before Christmas, 1991, that Joel was on West 46th Street in Manhattan when he picked up a sex worker. He didn't know her name, but paid the woman for oral sex. While in the cab of his pickup truck, Joel strangled her. He described it as a very quick death. He drove the victim to an area behind his workplace and hid the body under a tarp. He drove to Westbury near a recycling plant where he'd once worked and found a 55-gallon drum. He then drove to a South Bronx area littered with junkyards. Joel placed the woman's body inside and rolled the drum down to the East River. He was about to leave the scene when law enforcement surprised him. Police accused him of illegally dumping trash. But Joel was able to convince officers he had been collecting junk instead of dumping it.
Oh my gosh.
They let him go with a warning. Joel found the drum was an easy way to get rid of bodies.
Hey, hold on 1 second. You're forgetting your drum over there.
How many times have we heard stories like this where it seems like serial killers specifically will have these very close calls and brushes with police and somehow manage to slip through the cracks and get away?
I think one of the most glaring ones got to be Dahmer when they helped one of the victims back into his apartment.
That was actually what I was just thinking of Dahmer.
I say a lot of people out listening were thinking the same thing. And all he had to do was say, it's gay stuff. And the cops are just like, ooh, gross. Which is unfortunate because he could have been stopped sooner and people could have been saved.
On December 26th of 1991, Joel was driving along Bayshore, Long Island, when he encountered 28-year-old Lorraine Orvieto. Orvieto suffered from manic depression, and instead of using medication, she wanted to control her moods with cocaine. However, cocaine isn't cheap.
Cocaine is not a mood state. I'm sorry, that does not sound like that's a poor self-diagnosis. People pull out the WebMD and you instantly got, the worst disease possible for your symptoms. But cocaine, that's not
well, let's be honest. It sounds more like she just wants to do the cocaine and she's rationalizing it by saying, well, it's to help my moods.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm using cocaine medicinally to help stabilize my mood disorder. And it's going to make me have moods anyway. So, yeah, it's going to be ineffective. But I like coke. That's what she's saying. I don't want someone to cut that out and use it against me.
Orvieto was working as a prostitute to make drug money. Joel saw her and made a proposition. Desperate for cash, Orvieto agreed to go with him. They parked by a fence near a school. Orvieto began performing oral sex on Joel when he started to strangle her. After she was dead, Joel rummaged through her purse. That's when he discovered medicine called AZT, which is used to treat HIV-positive patients. He decided to keep some of her belongings, including the medication and jewelry, along with her ID as a trophy. And Joel's had quite a few encounters with women that he knows have HIV and or have AIDS. And he is terrified of getting AIDS.
Yeah, but he's frequenting the streets.
Exactly. But he will say that he almost had this obsession with that, I'm going to become HIV positive. But yet he's still doing this high risk. He's still engaging in this high-risk behavior.
You know, some people think that the AZT drug was actually making AIDS patients, which it was predominant in the gay community back then, unfortunately, worse. And there's a big conspiracy around that. And actually, Mr. Dr. Fauci had a big hand in the whole way all that played out in the AIDS epidemic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Joel drove to his landscaping workplace to put Orvieto inside a barrel. Driving to Brooklyn with the body in the back of his pickup, he dropped the drum into Coney Island Creek. It wasn't discovered until July 11th, 1992 by a fisherman. Orvieto's family didn't even know she was missing. It wasn't until 2 months after the body's discovery that her family filed a missing persons report. Her mother, Florence Orvieto, told the New York Times that she'd been saving her Christmas presents for 2 years until she learned in 1993 that her daughter's body had been discovered in a 55-gallon oil drum in Coney Island Creek, which is in Brooklyn.
That's just terrible. Still got a pile of presents at the house, hoping that you'll see your daughter again. And then I not only learn, I just don't even know how you live with that, how you process that. I'm sure you don't. There's always a hole. Not only is your loved one not coming back, they were found in a fucking barrel, dead, murdered.
I'm not sure how families recover from something like that.
Oftentimes the families fall apart in various ways.
You know, if that's your loved one, I don't know how people bounce back from that.
I think sometimes the grief just can't be worked through, certain types of grief, you know? And sometimes couples fall apart, especially if it's a child of theirs that falls victim to something like this. And some people have survivor's guilt. Some people blame, each other and turn on each other. And it's very sad how much destruction. The murderer doesn't just affect their victim. They affect everyone connected and around the victim.
I know. I realize, people want closure and they want to know what happens, but sometimes these things are so horrific that it almost seems like, gosh, would you be better off just not knowing what happened?
I can't. We're not in that position, so they may say no to that answer, but my God, that's just not something you expect or would ever want to hear about your loved one.
No, it's horrific. It's like nightmare material. Joel's need to kill was escalating. At first, he went months, even a year between murders, but now they were occurring with frequency. It was only a week after killing Orvieto that Joel was returning to his hunting grounds. 39-year-old drug addict Marianne Holloman was working on January 2nd of 1992 when she met Joel. Holloman worked as a prostitute, but she also sewed costumes for exotic dancers as well to earn money. She was a pretty talented seamstress, Dylan. Holloman would be Joel's oldest victim. Marianne had grown up in Pennsylvania and was described as a very spirited woman and a very talented seamstress. Like, had she not fallen into drugs, she might have been very successful.
She could have been part of some famous design house.
Yeah, because she made these costumes for dancers and by all accounts had been a very, talented young woman.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll have someone who's a really good designer, but not that great of a seamstress. So, if you're at sale at...
Do you know that because you watched Project Runway with me?
I do. Some people have the utility part of it without the inspirational part. And she definitely could have landed a really good job doing something she loved.
And New York City would be the place to make that happen. After he picked up Mary, they agreed on a price, and Joel drove to the same school area where he had killed Yun Lee. While Holloman performed oral sex, Joel started to strangle her.
That's weird.
So he strangles her to death. He drives her body back to Long Island, shoving it in an oil drum, which he dumped into Coney Island Creek. Her body was found on July 9th after receiving a tip from an anonymous caller. Soon after, she was identified, and her remains were sent to her family in Pennsylvania. It was only 2 days later, on July 11th, that Orvieto's body was found. So he had essentially dumped them just within a few feet of each other, like in the same spot.
Well, sometimes you see with these fluctuating cooling off periods, when they try to resist the urge, it like builds up. We've heard this time and again. And then they kind of get sloppy because they're just kind of lost in like this bloodlust and they don't plan.
Like Ted Bundy.
Yeah. Yes,
and exactly. I think specifically when Bundy was in Florida and just went on this
Is that when he
murder spree.
went in that house and killed those girls
sorority
with,
girls,
like smashed them in the head with a
and
fire stick.
I think, or
or
was it
wood.
roommates?
Yeah.
It was like college students. But then he killed like a little girl.
He was
He
totally
had
out
a
of
young
control.
victim, and he normally had not murdered children.
He was totally out of control at that point. And I think that's one of the shining examples of that very thing.
Yeah. By now, it's clear to authorities that they have an active serial killer.
Well, yeah, you got, I mean,
Yet the overwhelming number of murders in the city left law enforcement stretched thin. There were 2,000 murders a year
wow.
in the city at this time.
Man, that's a lot, even by today's standards. That is a very violent city.
Oh, yeah. This is a high number. Sex workers and drug addicts were not a top priority for the department. And Joel Rifkin knew this and used it to his advantage. He had managed to fly under the radar, and with every successful kill and disposal, he was feeling invincible. Like he would just never be caught.
Well, it's like they have, you know, they can frame it as, oh, we have these other priorities. But even in a small, we see it in a small town. With a boring small town where they do have plenty of time on their hands, they view these people in a certain way.
They do.
They do not care. Drug users, prostitutes, people like this, they view them as, I don't know, less than human or whatever. They don't even care. Even if they go back and sit on their ass,
You've
they don't even
mentioned
try.
before that we in our small town have had a few deaths that have been ruled very suspicious and could be considered homicides, but they immediately
Write them off.
write it off like, oh, well, this person was a drug addict and they had been in trouble with the law. So then they don't further investigate it.
Drug activity.
I can think of two right offhand the names of these individuals.
I know of 2 or 3,
Yeah.
and they always involved a damn creek or water, and they were just fishy circumstances. And honestly, I don't think it would be that hard in a small town like this to pull that thread and for it to unravel. You know what I mean? Because you're dealing with people who may have trouble with the law and things like that, and you can use that as a bargaining chip. They could get to the bottom of some of this if they wanted to. And it could turn out, after investigating, that it was truly just drug activity and an overdose. But, I mean, God, give them a fair shake at least, even if they were a shitbird.
Well, I'm just curious who goes to the river like naked to take drugs and overdose.
I mean, you know, you got
that's
different
the part
drugs.
that doesn't really make sense to me.
Some of them make you feel hot and, you know, disrobe. But still, it's just some of these cases have been very strange circumstances. And I'm sure any listeners that live in the area may know of some of these stories we're talking about.
Joel's next victim was found before the previous 2 victims. He knew nothing of her other than she had a lot of tattoos and was picked up in Manhattan. Joel would later say this woman had fought him hard for her life, but he strangled her anyway. Joel placed her in another barrel and dumped it in Newton Town Creek, which is in Brooklyn. May 13th of 1992, the rusty drum was seen floating with the current. A foot was spotted protruding from this drum.
Oh, my God.
Which is something no one wants to see.
No, but I mean, you see that, and I'd say it takes you a moment for your brain to even process what you're seeing.
Yeah, most people that find something like this,
They always say they think it's a mannequin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your brain doesn't want to admit what it might be.
A toxicology report found a large amount of cocaine in her system, so it was assumed she'd been a drug mule. She was another Jane Doe. Her identity remains unknown to this day. In April of 1992, Joel skipped work and was driving down First Avenue looking for some action when he spotted 25-year-old Iris Sanchez. Described as a vivacious young mother who loved dancing, Sanchez unfortunately was a crack addict. He drove Sanchez to a housing project in Manhattan where they had sex. During sex, Joel strangled her. He then drove her across the Brooklyn Bridge. He's still got her body in the truck, looking for a place to dump it. So he's just driving around.
The nerve of this guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like he's getting more brave.
Well, I mean, he's probably seen, he may see reports of, hey, his body found in a barrel of such and such, but there's never any follow-up because, I mean, it would be tricky to, you know, figure it out anyway. But
he's just driving around with her dead body in the front seat of the truck, like all over New York City.
Yeah. Here you have this little kind of wimpy, unassuming guy who's killed so many people at this point.
Near Rockaway Boulevard, there was an illegal dump site. So after taking off the woman's jewelry, he shoved her body under a rotting mattress at this dump site. The spot was visible from JFK Airport. However, no one found Sanchez's body until Joel informed law enforcement that he had hidden her there.
Ooh.
Ana Lopez was described by her mother as a happy and outspoken child. She was also the mother of 3 children, but was addicted to cocaine. Like so many others, Lopez had sold sex for drug money. They went to a residential street on May 25th of 1992. After sex in the vehicle, Joel strangled Anna to death. He drove her to Brewster, which is in Putnam County, and dumped her body near I-84. A motorist who stopped along the road to make a pee-pee, Dylan, spotted this woman's body. One of her earrings was later found among Joel's possessions.
Ah, yet another trophy.
Yes.
Why is it the phrase rotting mattress garners a visceral reaction from me?
It's gross.
It just...
Because I think we've probably all seen that dumped mattress, whether it's at a landfill or discarded.
Some old lot or something.
Yeah.
And I think what plays out in my head anyway is that thought or idea of someone laying on this disgusting fucking mattress, which does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't get off of it now. I'm just imagining this filthy, disgusting, fluid-covered mattress in a rat-infested lot, empty lot, abandoned, desolate. Okay. Let's go.
Okay, I feel...
I know.
I feel repulsed now.
Who won't be?
Joel met 21-year-old Violet O'Neill. She was a young mother who had a son. Those who knew Violet said she was actually a really good mom. She loved her child, was a great mom. She was the first victim that Rifkin had taken home to East Meadow in over a year. He picked her up in the city, strangled her after sex at his mother's house, and dismembered her corpse in the bathtub. Rifkin consigned her remains to the waters surrounding Manhattan. Her torso surfaced in the Hudson River, wrapped in black plastic, while her arms and legs were found in a discarded suitcase. It took over 3 days for more parts to surface in East River, the Harlem River, and near Governor's Island.
Man, just finding body parts. I think that would mess me up worse than a whole body. Just part of the body.
Don't they find a lot of bodies in the Hudson River?
Oh,
I feel like that's been a dumping place for some years.
I'd say it's dumping. You're going to have suicides. Hell, there's been body parts found on I-40 in our area.
Yeah, that's happened before. Joel's next victim was a prime example of how life can go terribly wrong. Mary Catherine Williams had been homecoming queen of her high school and a cheerleader at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. After divorcing, the 32-year-old moved to New York City to pursue an acting career. She had eloped in 1987, and her husband would later become a minister. But unfortunately, Mary Catherine fell into drugs. Her husband had met her back in high school, and they dated some in college. And at that time, he thought she smoked too much pot. But then, they kind of went their separate ways, whatever, reunited. As soon as they got married, he realized she not only had a serious eating disorder, but she was smoking crack.
Oh.
Soon the pair were using together. He had not been a drug user up until this point, and she got him into smoking crack with her.
And this is common. This can happen. It's common because a true addict, typically people who are, if they're with a partner who's not, it's not going to last long because they're just not going to put up with the bullshit. But if you can get them on board of using with you, then of course it makes your life easier.
Finally, they separated, and he went to Vanderbilt to study seminary. That's when Williams, who was the daughter of a Charlotte dentist, she moved to New York City. Now, at first, she was working as a dancer, an exotic dancer, to pay the bills. But she began doing sex work to support her drug habit, and there had been times she was homeless. Joel was no stranger to Williams. They had engaged in sex for pay a few times before. When Joel propositioned her for sex on October 2nd of 1992, She felt comfortable saying yes because this is someone she had known and they had hung out in the past. They purchased drugs before having sex. Williams fell asleep in Joel's truck because, they're kind of up in the cab of the truck. And he tried to strangle her, but she woke up and she fought him furiously. But Joel managed to overpower this woman and he had to smother her. Like, he couldn't strangle her because she was fighting him so hard. So he ended up smothering her. Rifkin drove her body to Yorktown in Westchester. Joel took her purse, credit cards, and costume jewelry pieces as a trophy. She would be discovered on December 21st. Quote, last Christmas, 1991, she came home and we begged and begged her not to go back to New York, her mother said. She did not come home this Christmas, so we knew something was wrong. Joel finished up 1992 with one more victim, 23-year-old Jenny Soto. Soto was a drug addict. She had tried to detox and had been to rehab several times, but she could never quite kick the habit. Her family described her as a quiet Brooklyn girl who loved to play with her nieces and nephews, but they said she did have a bit of a wilder side when she went into the city. Her 16-year-old sister, Jessie Almeida, said at the time, quote, we were out every night. She loved the clubs. She liked dressing up. So she sounds like a fun girl to be around.
So she likes to party and she likes to boogie.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, this is like the early 90s. So she's like, wants to wear a cute outfit and go out dancing. I get that. Jenny was using sex work to pay for her drug habit. It was on November 16th when she was working near the Williamsburg Bridge in Lower Manhattan that Joel spotted her. They agreed on $40 for sex, and afterwards he strangled her in his pickup truck. Jenny fought incredibly hard to live. She was wearing fake nails, and they were ripped off during the process. She had Joel's skin under some of her nails where she had clawed him, like big chunks of Joel's skin.
When I hear stories, and it's terrible for one, but when I hear them fight tooth and nail and almost scare the predator, it stands out in my Gary Hilton. There was that, I forget her name. I think it was Meredith. He was 60 plus. She damn near took him out. You know what I mean? And she wouldn't stop. He took her away. His thing was to get you in the van, go drain your accounts, keep you with him. And he was almost scared of her. She was whooping his ass. And I love to hear that because that's what these pieces of shit deserve.
Absolutely. And, it's too bad this was kind of, I guess, around the time DNA was starting to be a thing because having those chunks of skin, they would have been able to figure out who Joel was and get him pretty quickly.
If they tried.
Yeah. Joel would say Jenny was the toughest one he had killed. After her death, Joel collected the woman's ID card, earrings, underwear, and a drug syringe as trophies that he added to his collection. Jenny Soto's body later washed up along the rocks of the Harlem River in November of 1992. The 23-year-old was only wearing a t-shirt when she was found. Joel would later say Jenny's scratch marks were visible, and it was the first time he had to explain marks on his body, which gave him pause.
Okay.
And he waited 15 weeks before killing again. It made him so nervous.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not. I'm going to tell you right now, my nerves would not let me go around doing all the sexes like he's doing with these women. In public places and alleys and cars. That would not work for me.
Well, honey, we know you have a weird hang-up.
Well, it's not weird. I think it's safe.
I know you got hang-ups. Okay, I won't say you got weird hang-ups. You got hang-ups. We get it.
Yeah, don't kink shame me. Well, it's not kink. But yeah, well, no, it keeps me safe.
Your kink is that you like to be comfortable and safe in the privacy of your own bedroom.
In my own bedroom.
With your monogamous partner.
Is that weird?
That's your kink.
Okay.
Monogamy is Dylan's kink.
And with that very sensible kink that I have, I'm safe. Nobody's going to come. Well, I mean, it's very unlikely someone's going to come in my bedroom and kill me when I'm engaging in some type of sexual relations with my wife.
Doubtful. But But I guess you never say never, Dylan.
Wait, doubtful of getting the sexual relationship or doubtful of being killed?
Maybe both.
I knew it.
Maybe both.
Damn it.
During this cooling off period, Joel tried to formulate better plans and avoid situations where he might get injured. Poor Joel.
Oh.
Oh, I'm going to scratch on my face.
Oh.
You baby. Just want to kick this guy in his fucking stupid face.
Well, why can't fate get these fuckers, you know? Why can't he just die in like a fucked up single car accident or something where he just like hits a tree and no one else is hurt?
Or maybe he's like taking a poop and the toilet explodes. Like there's dynamite in it and it just like blows up his whole body.
Wait a second. Is he killed by the coyote
That
from
would
the
be-
Looney Tunes?
That would be awesome.
Like, why is there dynamite in his toilet?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe he stumbled upon a construction site and didn't realize they were doing demolition day.
Cue the piano falling
Yeah.
from the upper floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. By 1993, Joel could no longer control his urges. 28-year-old Leah Evans, mother of two, was living in Brooklyn with her mom when she started using drugs. Leah had been the daughter of a civil court judge and had attended Sarah Lawrence College.
See, all these people, if you would take a controversial stance of just supplying addicts with their said drug of choice until they do get help, or if they don't get help until, you know, for the rest of their life. It keeps them comfortable. It takes all the crime and violence out, and it would have kept them safe. So I really think we need to start pushing this. Hot take. What do you think, Heather?
My hot take is if you just legalized sex work and made it safe, we could avoid some of these situations.
Well, I think that's a more sensible hot take.
Sex work was a way to pay for drugs for Leah. It was February 27th when Joel picked her up. They agreed on money in exchange for sex. The pair, or, the sex for money thing. The pair went to an abandoned parking lot, but once she started undressing, Leah felt uncomfortable and wanted to find a more secluded spot. Joel refused to go anywhere else. Leah began crying, and that's when Joel strangled her. He drove to a wooded area off County Road 51 in Southampton, where he buried her body. By early summer, hikers found a woman's hand sticking out of the ground. Police were unable to make an ID on the body, but a forensic anthropologist tried to recreate a facial reconstruction. Leah's driver's license would later be found among Joel's possessions, and he would admit to having killed her. 28-year-old Lauren Marquez was the mother of two children. She had moved to New York from Tennessee to make a better life for herself. Lauren had been raised in a military family, but had fallen into drugs. She was living in Sunnyside, Queens at the time. It was April 2nd of 1993 that Lauren was strolling along 2nd Avenue when Joel approached her in his truck. He drove to an area near the Manhattan Bridge where they could engage in, have their sexual encounter. However, there was a man with a dog nearby. Joel had already tried attacking this woman, and she had started to fight back. I mean, it's just like chaotic. He's trying to attack her. There's a guy with a dog nearby who's starting to notice there's a struggle in this truck.
Yeah, I hope she puts a 3-piece on his ass.
She nearly escaped, but Joel managed to get her and back into the truck, and he broke her neck.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He drove to the Suffolk County Pine Barrens where he disposed of her body. So this is not going the way he planned.
No.
And he's already been having those feelings because he got scratched and had a victim fight back. And then now he has one nearly escape, and someone nearby is almost witnessing this encounter.
Well, it's like he's feeling rushed. He's not getting to plan and everything out and be more comfortable with it. And it's like he don't even, at this point, he's there for the murder. If he gets gets to have sex before, it seems to be incidental to what he truly wants to do.
Well, and I think we're seeing he's losing his grip.
Yes.
It's becoming more frequent. He's getting sloppy. He's doing this in public. He's, up until this point, he's sort of taken for granted that he's been able to overpower these women, but the last few have been trying to kick his ass and fight back.
God, I wish they had just got out on his ass and stabbed him.
In the early morning hours of June 24th, 1993, Joel picked up his final victim, Tiffany Bresciani. Tiffany was from Louisiana and had moved to New York City to get into dancing and acting. However, she was a drug addict. At the time, her boyfriend was Dave Rubenstein of the punk band Reagan Youth.
Okay.
When Joel picked up Tiffany, he had already been with a sex worker a few hours earlier. I mean, this obsession, it's like he leaves one and then goes and picks up another.
Honestly, I've wondered how he was able to. I'm sure he probably robs his victims when he kills them, because that would be a logical thing to do, I guess, for a murderer. But how he's financed this all these years? I guess almost every dime he has goes into because, like you said, he doesn't kill every victim, so he obviously enjoys the process of sex for sale, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Right? I mean, he's into that.
Well, he still lives at home, so
Or
I'm
he would-
assuming probably doesn't have a whole lot of bills.
Well, that's true.
All of his money is going to feed this compulsion.
Sounds like almost he may be a sex addict as well as a shitbird.
Yeah, I think so. Joel and Tiffany drove to a parking lot, actually the parking lot of the New York Post, and he strangles her to death. Leaving her body in the backseat of his mother's car, Joel drives home, but stops off for a tarp and rope on the way. He's being pretty bold.
He's got her propped up back there like his weekend at Bernie's or some
In
shit.
his mom's car. Okay. By the time Joel reaches his mother's house, he had bundled Tiffany up in the tarp and tied her up with rope. He placed the body in the trunk of his mother's car. Now, as soon as he returns home, Gene demands he hand over the car keys.
Yeah, I guess I've kind of forgotten that his mom's been dealing with his bullshit all this time. I mean, he's never left home.
Well, and a lot of people wonder, like, how much that she knew, like, that she might have known some of this and just sort of looked the other way.
Well, Sam Little had the friend, the accomplice, that would clean the car and stuff. And
I mean, there's been no indication his mother went that far, but
Right.
some people have questioned, like, how could he be leading this lifestyle, doing these things, and like his mom never knew,
or never ask questions, or be like, "What are you up to? Where's all your money go? What
Yeah.
are you doing?"
exactly.
Yeah, it's like Sam Little's friend would say she would clean the car out, but she had no idea what. But the car's covered in like body fluids and excrement where you actually killed someone. I'm not going to go that far for any friend.
No, I'm not even going to clean my own car. And
No.
it's just got some like candy wrappers in the floorboard and a couple of empty water bottles.
My work car is disgusting, and I think it's
It is. I like to call it the mobile trash can.
It's gross. It smells, and I feel like I'm a rather clean person. Typically, I'm groomed and rather fresh, if I may say so myself.
Your car is pretty gross.
But when I have to apologize when people go to get my car, my little work car, and I'm just like, "I'm sorry," and they're like, "What?" And they open the door and like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, it's
I'm
horrible.
like, "Oh yeah, that's despair and Marlboro Lights, bitch."
Yeah, it's like a tiny landfill in there. So his mother goes on a shopping trip, never knowing she has a dead body in the trunk of her car.
Oh my God, it's still in the trunk. I missed that.
Yes.
Holy shit. And see, these sociopaths can be pulled over by a cop, psychopaths, or whatever, and be cool as a cucumber. The rest of us would be all to hell. Like you said, he's just driving around willy-nilly with a dead body in the car, back seat, whatever.
Front seat.
And he's cool. It doesn't bother him. That's because he's not wired right. He's not. Yeah, it's not proper.
He's not wired right. Yeah. He's got a couple wires loose. When his mother returns, Joel manages to unload Tiffany's body into a wheelbarrow, which he left in the garage for 3 days while he made repairs to his truck. Despite the sweltering summer heat, no one noticed the stench of decomposition.
In this enclosed garage in that summer heat, that's gonna become a bad situation very quickly.
When Joel decided it was time to get rid of Tiffany's body, he planned to dump it near Melville's Republic Airport. It was on the evening of June 28th, 1993, that Joel was driving around with Tiffany's remains in the truck. A state trooper noted, "This pickup has no license plate," and attempts to pull Joel over.
Oh shit! So he's driving. He's got the balls to drive around in a vehicle with no license plate with a dead body.
Yes. He's just so emboldened. A police chase ensues, yet Joel refused to go over 50 miles per hour. So it's like the slowest police chase ever.
It's like OJ.
After leading officers on a 20-minute chase, Joel crashes into a utility pole. Troopers place Joel in handcuffs, but then one of them notices a foul smell emitting from the back of the truck. The trooper used a flashlight to peer under the tarp in the back and makes the grisly discovery of Tiffany's body, finding Tiffany's body.
Yeah, and she's in advanced decomposition, so there's no chance of them thinking it's a second accident victim or anything like that. And I'm sure this would shock them.
When Tiffany's body was discovered, Joel freely admitted she was a sex worker, and he was like, I killed her. With no reaction, Joel made a confession to troopers that he'd picked up these sex workers and killed them. He's like, I picked her up 3 days before and I murdered her. I mean, he's just blabbing his big mouth. He was taken to Troop L barracks for questioning, and in an 8-hour period, Joel tells law enforcement all about the 17 women he's murdered. In some cases, he could only recount a small detail about the victim, but others he had more information. He could give them names, dates.
And we've heard this before, the willingness to talk about what they've done. I don't know if they're proud of it, and sometimes they are. These types of killers have been known to embellish to grow their lore, their legend. But why do you think they're so willing to talk? Because they're so self-absorbed and narcissistic that they want to be like, look what I did? You think that's the driving motivation for that?
It could be. I mean, I'm not really sure. Joel told troopers about where he had buried and dumped bodies. He's drawn them maps.
So he's given them every detail, every victim, as far as he can remember.
Yeah. You know, and one of the things that you're mentioning about Joel, like just being so eager to talk, he will later say that like he absolutely needed to be put behind bars because he couldn't control himself, and he knew like that he would never be able to stop.
Okay, well, we're definitely not going to give him any kudos because he could have done, shit, if you feel bad about it, go kill yourself and save other people. But
well, I'm just saying, it's
no,
almost like he felt a sigh of relief when he was finally caught.
And that makes me think, and with the fluctuations in the cooling off period, the kind of loss of control, it's kind of spiraling out of control, and now it seems like he's even getting on his mom's nerves to a degree. So yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Due to a lack of recorded confession, Joel would argue that he had asked for counsel several times but was denied. The written transcripts detailed a different version of events. Each story Joel told was in a very matter-of-fact tone. At first, law enforcement didn't know what to believe because he had obviously murdered one woman, but 16 more?
Well,
they were just like, is this guy totally full of shit? And the fact that he's just so open and chatty and just telling them everything, they think he can't be for real. Like, no one's going to just open up and admit they've done all this
without being prompted by anything. But I'm sure as soon as they start checking out the details, the maps and locations,
absolutely. He told law enforcement about dumping 3 bodies in Southampton, so detectives were immediately dispatched to that area to just sort of check up and see if this guy was for real.
Well, and some of these are very unique bodies in a barrel. I mean, that's not something that happens every day.
Warrants were obtained to search Joel's vehicle and his mother's home. When officers initially arrived at Jean's house, they only told her Joel was being held after a traffic incident, but they gave her no further details. Later, Jean saw a news report about Joel, and that's how she learned he was detained for murder.
Okay, well, I mean, I wonder what their reasoning for that was. It seems like you would inform his mother, hey, look, we're not sure of exactly what's happening.
Well, maybe they were afraid that she would
dispose of evidence?
Yeah.
Okay.
That maybe she would interfere or something. So Jean calls a criminal attorney, Robert Sales, to help her son. Combing through Joel's belongings, officers uncovered a treasure trove of evidence, including items belonging to women, such as underwear. They found purses, ID cards, wallets, makeup, and jewelry. There were prescriptions with women's names, along with these driver's license and credit cards that had the victims' names as well. A lot of the items would later be connected to unsolved murders, and so that's how they were able to identify some of these Jane Does. During the search, true crime books focusing on serial killers were also found, along with what was called sadistic pornography. The most disturbing discovery was inside the garage, where a wheelbarrow with 3 ounces of human blood was hidden away.
Jesus.
Other tools were found, which appeared to be stained with blood, and some of them even almost had like little remnants of hair, like a chainsaw.
Man, I gotta tell you, I could not imagine. And I accidentally cut myself with a chainsaw. I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't a terrible injury, but it was just a split second of contact. And it was like, quarter inch plus deep, gash.
It was a bad cut, baby.
It was pretty bad. Freaked me out. And I, in turn, freaked Heather out, which I apologize for.
It's okay.
Because other people were trying to take me I was working on a fence, and they were trying to take me to the doctor. I was like, call my wife. I'm waiting on my wife. I would have bled out there waiting on you.
He just calls me and was like, I'm hurt. Come get me. And then like hangs up.
I think I even screamed, it's really bad.
And I don't.
hung up.
Yeah. And I thought you were joking. And then I didn't really know where you were working. I knew the area. So I just drive to that street and like hope that I find you, but I don't know which house it is. Oh my gosh.
Why does that sound
it
like
was terrifying. Why'd you do that to me?
Why does that sound like a very Dylan thing to do if you hurt yourself?
It's
and
such
you
a Dylan thing to do.
I'm hurt. It's horrible. It's bad. Hang up. No direction where you're at. No elaboration on the injury. Just, who knows? You're just, I'm sorry about that, because I know you. No, seriously, when you showed up, you were just like, and then obviously you saw, I was pouring blood, and it was.
Yeah, please don't ever do that to me again.
But anyway,
next time, let your friend call.
Yes,
okay.
my partner is much more level-headed in emergencies, but just cutting a body up with a chainsaw, it's just that, or one of those reciprocating saws. Jesus. A chainsaw is going to be flinging, no different than sawdust. Flinging blood, gore.
Look.
Everywhere.
One of the worst scenes in a movie, or most memorable for me.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Scarface.
Yes.
The bathroom with the chainsaw, that scene, as a young person, watching Scarface and not really, for the first time, you don't really know what to expect. It's like, oh, it's a gangster movie.
Yeah.
That scene fucked me up.
The way it was filmed.
It's so suggestive.
Yes.
And a chainsaw is just so scary anyway.
It's almost like knowing what the chainsaw is being used for. It's almost like that when that shotgun gets racked, just this universal noise of dread that everyone would understand, even if you didn't know what a shotgun was for some reason. That fucked me up when I saw that as a young person. This was back in the day, because we are old now, and things were quite a bit less, out of fucking control like they are nowadays. So yes, this the way that scene was shot, and what it just let you know for a fact was happening.
I think it's the subtlety. If that may, the subtlety of a chainsaw, but almost like the subtlety of it, the innuendo, it's suggested what's happening, but it's not showing you graphic gore.
Now, Tony could see what was happening, though, right?
Yeah.
In his face.
It just was
the dread in his face.
It was just not good. Wow. Joel wrote a detailed list with names, dates, and locations for law enforcement, so now the search was on to find the various bodies. After the initial appearance, Joel fired Sales as his attorney and hired John Lawrence and Michael Shoshnick. Lawrence was a former Nassau County district attorney. His first move was to try and squash Joel's confession, but that was denied. Several weeks into the trial, the hearings, prosecutors offered a plea bargain, confessed to the 17 murders, and you can get 46 years to life. But Joel thought he would avoid such a sentence by using an insanity defense.
Because, and it's not uncommon for these types of offenders to fire their lawyer or represent themselves because they think they're the smartest person in the freaking room, right? And I think one of the better examples of this in the modern day was that dumbass who drove through that parade in
Oh.
was it Wisconsin?
What's his name?
Daryl something?
Brooks?
Daryl Brooks, I
Was
think.
that his name?
Oh my gosh.
I can't remember.
I'm sure the listeners out there know of this. If you don't, look it up. This guy was a flippin' moron. And he thought he had everything figured out. And it was so hilarious when the judge would just straight up put him in his place.
By the time the trial began on April 11th, 1994, Joel had fired one of the attorneys, but had kept the other one. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. 5 women and 7 men were chosen as jurors. When the prosecution opened on April 20th, they painted Joel as a sexual sadist and serial killer who got caught red-handed, claiming he was only using his mental illness to avoid punishment. His attorney argued that Joel was a paranoid schizophrenic who lived in, quote, the Twilight Zone. During one part of the trial, Joel Rifkin snored
Nice.
loudly. When asked about his behavior, Joel's attorney claimed it was an allergic reaction to a bad sandwich.
Okay, I've never heard of that type of reaction. And I don't even know how you could, in good faith, put forth an insanity defense given the disposal, the cleanup, the planning. I just the hunting.
I don't know how snoring is an allergic reaction to a bad sandwich.
Well, that may give us an insight into the fact that his lawyer might not be that smart. Sorry.
A psychiatrist named Barbara Kerwin testified that Rifkin's psychological assessments were the most pathological she had seen in 20 years. Dr. Park Dietz, a renowned witness in cases such as Jeffrey Dahmer and Arthur Shawcross, disagreed. He explained that Joel was sick but not insane. Joel Rifkin knew exactly what he was doing when he murdered the women. By May 9th, the jury found Joel Rifkin guilty. He was sentenced to 25 years to life. He was transferred to Suffolk County to stand trial for the murders of Lauren Marquez and Leah Evans. Instead of pleading guilty by reason of insanity using the schizophrenia defense, Joel's new disorder was called adopted child syndrome, placing blame on his adoption for the reason that he killed.
See, he was well aware what he did was wrong, and that's why he disposed of the victim and tried to cover his tracks. So they really dropped the ball on that. But adopted child syndrome is I'm going to look that up later.
Now, according to Joel, the trauma from being adopted made him mentally ill. It came from a very antiquated idea that there was a link between violence and adoption. Joel had previously claimed his birth mother had been a prostitute, although there was no proof of this, and that's why he lashed out at sex workers. A doctor, Dr. Kirshner, who was working for the defense, had spent 26 years studying this syndrome. In his work, 10% of adopted children exhibited emotional disturbances. Patterns of behavior included sexual promiscuity, stealing, pathological lying, anxiety, extreme antisocial behavior, and absence of guilty feelings. The judge ordered Joel undergo neurological testing. Yet to everyone's surprise, Joel changed his plea at the last minute. He entered a plea of guilty to the murders of Marquez and Evans. His plea was accepted, and the judge gave Joel 25 years to life for each of those murders. The last trial took place 2 years after the first trial. During the sentencing phase for the murder of Iris Sanchez, Joel addressed the court for the first time, talking about the horrors he had committed. Joel told the victims' families he had no understanding of the compulsion to kill. He said, quote, "You'll think I'm nothing but a monster, and you're right. Part of me must be." Joel acknowledged some of the victims he had considered friends. He stated they had been kind to him and that he knew they were women who had dreams and had families that they loved. And they would often talk about the future and what they wanted and their families, their kids.
Well, that makes what you did even worse, dude.
I don't know.
I mean, you have the sympathetic, you know these people to a degree. And, for just like you want to write them all off like they're throwaway people, knowing damn well that some of them had family and kids that they loved.
In total, Joel was convicted of 9 of the 17 murders. He received 203 years imprisonment as a result.
I'm surprised that he did not catch any of these cases. I'm not sure of the death penalty in those states. I'm surprised it never came up.
Of these psychopathic traits, such as animal abuse and arson, that are often a part of the childhood of these guys, Joel exhibited none of those behaviors. Joel was antisocial. I mean, he did prefer to be alone in his room, but otherwise, he didn't really fit into the mold.
No,
as they've studied serial killers over the years.
And just like that adoptive child syndrome, I mean, come on, it sounded like, for all intents and purposes, if you will, that he had a good, stable home.
Yeah.
And his adoptive parents did him a service, a good thing. I'm screwing that up. By adopting him and giving him this loving home. So yeah, he misses all those typical things.
He does, but in other ways he hits the mark, like being shiftless, like he wasn't able to hold down in a job like for any extended period.
Antisocial.
He never really finished what he started. He was antisocial. And otherwise, folks have called Joel Rifkin a very organized killer.
Right. And oh wow, I just had a thought.
And strangulation is very up close and personal, and it's like he tried out some different things, but that's what he like figured out he liked.
Right.
Like some serial killers will try different methods, and it seems like he did kind of play with different methods, and the strangulation is what he liked.
I wonder if the stand-in abuse, instead of having horrible parents or whatever, was the bullying during his formative years. Because it sounded like it was pretty intense, and I wonder if even abuse outside of your home or not from a family member can still cause this type of personality to develop.
Who knows?
Damn, son.
Again, it becomes that whole nature versus nurture argument. Maybe he was just destined to be a shitbird.
I'm going, when I complete my peer-reviewed papers, I will get back to listeners about that.
Okay. That sounds good.
Or is it called a white paper? I don't know shit about school.
Okay, Dylan. Yeah, you and Joel Rifkin.
Me and Joel Rifkin what?
Underachievers.
Oh, okay. It's going to lump me in. I'm nothing like Joel Rifkin. I can have sex in parking lots and all that mess. So, that's not going to work. And I'm not going to frequent sex workers. Not there's anything wrong with sex workers. I wish they had a safe environment to work. I've always wondered, even as a very rather young person, why can't I rent out my junk? It's mine. Don't I have autonomy? Don't I have a choice? I never understood how that is for so very long been illegal.
I don't
and
understand.
It makes me...
We know, but what's interesting in American history is there were periods when it was not illegal.
It's true, and that's true in most civilizations.
I mean, look at Storyville in New Orleans.
I'm not familiar with Storyville.
Very famous red light district that was allowed to legally operate for almost a decade or so. You had brothels in the West. You had brothels. I mean, we've discussed brothels in Kentucky and Ohio and areas along, these booming river towns near coal mines and things back in the day. And they were allowed to work, and this was a service that was allowed to be offered.
You need whiskey and women in those boom towns. Or maybe it's the patriarch cannot stand the fact that a woman is coming up, if you will.
Yeah.
She's getting a leg up because she's got that thing.
They don't want her to get that bag.
And she's getting that bag with that thing, and it is valuable. War's been started over that stuff.
That wasn't sexist.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that sexist?
No.
I thought it was empowering.
Yeah. Especially when you call it that thing.
Well, I mean, I was kidding there. No, but
that thinging, Dylan.
I was being stupid, and I apologize to anyone who found that offensive. And you very seldom hear me say that.
You can find Dylan all of his social media accounts.
I don't have any.
He has a username, that thing.
Oh, okay. I thought you was going to get my real username. It freaked me out for a second.
No, you can find Dylan. Just look up that thing, and you'll see Dylan's thing.
Getting that bag with that thing. I'm talking about my thing now, so I can't offend anybody.
You wish.
Yeah, but no, seriously. I just don't get it. I don't get why you can't make this monetary transaction between two consenting adults. And they'll always fall back. Oh, you're going to tear the family apart. You'll make, well, no, stop. I'm going to stop you right there, because if I got run off with a neighbor, very seldom does that lead to criminal charges, right?
Yeah.
Adultery or whatever. You may get somebody on the civil side or, something like that. Actually, in North Carolina, we have an alienation of affection.
Yeah.
And you can actually hit that motherfucker they cheated with and sue their ass.
I know someone who did that.
And get money.
And she got
Big money.
a chunk of money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're going to cheat on your spouse, check out the laws regarding alienation of affection in your state.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to alienate you for free. So let's wrap it up.
Okay.
If you have any thoughts about today's case, you can always email us at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter, Mountain Murders Podcast, Instagram at Appalachian True Crime.
We're there all the time. And I'd like to again thank Leah and Anthony for sponsoring today's show. And if you'd like to follow their lead, because they're so smart, you can go to patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast and access all kinds of extra and ad-free episodes.
All sorts of content, Dylan.
A ton. I almost said shit ton, which is the actual unit of measurement here in the South. A lot of content. I was perusing that not long ago, and I was like, I don't even remember doing it.
You was perusing?
I don't remember half of this. Is that a real word?
Perusing?
Yeah.
Perusing? Yes.
Okay.
Perusing?
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's like cruising.
I got you.
All right. So thank everybody, and we hope you stay safe, and we'll see you again in the midweek. And we're so glad to be in New York. Thank you, Heather.
Bye, y'all.